Hey friends, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. It says it's not recording. I'm hoping it starts recording sometime soon here. There we go. Hi friends. I'm sorry if it started early. It doesn't tell me it's recording until it makes that noise, and so I was just kind of sitting here. So my doc cam is broken, so I get to do this through PowerPoint. So I made this really quick. It's not the most perfect PowerPoint I've ever made in my life, but that's okay. So let's talk about some things here. So we're going to talk about sponges, and their technical term for them is porifera. So why they're called porifera is because they have pores, and sponges are one of the first animals that formed. And I want to talk about them because right at the beginning of the Cambrian explosion, sponges took over the sea, and they kind of act almost as plants in the sea. And it's something that, like, when you look at a picture of the ocean, you see sponges, you think to yourself, those are like plants or non-living things. No, they're actually animals. They're actual documented animals. And so sponges have a typical shape. These are the three different shapes sponges could have. And what it is the water comes in from the side here. Okay, water comes in from the sides, and then it goes in the middle. We have little cells here that have little tiny tails, basically, that help grab food in the water, different microorganisms, and then they pump the water out the top. Okay. Obviously, sponges have evolved. This is a more complex shape. It has like separate little rooms with these little cells instead of one big chamber. This one has a little bit more rooms, so you can kind of see how sponges have evolved, but they all have the same basic shape. Now, what is also interesting about sponges and why we're talking about them is they're the first time that we see big multicellular animals on Earth. And we think it has something to do with the snowball Earth that we talked about last week, that conditions got so rough that living things, microorganisms, started working together to live. They said, hey, you do that job really well, I do this job really well. How about we share the jobs together and we'll be better off? And so sponges have three major cell types. And I want you to write this down. They have pinocytes, which is the skin of the sponge. We'll get back to those in a second. Choanocytes, which are the collar cells that grab food, and amoebocytes, which are the runners that, it says supper. I don't know why it says supper. It's supposed to be support. You can see my spelling is really good. Support the different cells in the middle. Now, what's interesting about this is not that so much what they do, but that all three of these cells can be tied to other cells that exist in nature already. It's like these little tiny microorganisms. These three decided, hey, let's all work together. And we can kind of see that here. So this is a picture of a choanocyte. It's basically a cell that has a tail, and its job is to whip around, and it catches food particles in its collar, and then it absorbs them. Okay, so it's the digestion system, basically, of the sponge. We have the same kind of animal that lives independently in the water in the ocean still today. Looks exactly the same. And so we think that these guys decided to kind of work together with these other two to make a multicellular organism that works together. What's interesting is the pinocyte is probably the one that is hardest to recognize because they've kind of given up their role as just the skin. But they get food as return for being a guard cell for the skin. The amoebocytes look like amoebas. If you've never seen an amoeba, it basically looks like a crawling piece of like jello. Okay, you can kind of Google one real quick. And these amoebas, they work in between the pinocytes and they run food to everybody. So choanocytes pick up the food, it distributes to the amoebocyte, and he makes sure that everybody gets the same amount of food. So it's like a little society. So this is the big break in animals. Like we always talk about, we think about ourselves, we're like, we're all these trillions of cells and they're working together. Why are they working together? Originally, we think they were their own organisms and they decided, you know what? We're better off together. That's kind of a cool thing. I think that's really, really cool. So that's sponges, how they're set up. If you ever take a zoology class, you'll talk a lot more about them, like my zoology class does. But that's the basics. Is there three major cell types? They all were individual organisms at one point, and they all came together and decided we're better together. And you can kind of see the basic shape here. The skin being here, the inside being gray. This is kind of empty fluid space. The red being the collar cells, and then the amoebocytes can move in between all the liquid to support all the cells and give them food and help them out. Kind of cool. So I hope that makes sense. If you need any help, let me know. Have a great day, guys.